bringing people and communities together on 87.7 FM and SecklowSounds.org. This is Secklow Sounds, your listening station.
Hello and welcome to Secklow Sounds Radio, the community radio station from Milton Keynes, where we bring people and communities together. This is the Business Lunch Programme, where we're live online. I'm Jim Cleland, and I'll be talking to people today who are making it their business to do business in the local community. Also in the programme, we'll keep you up to date with business news, other programmes that you can listen to on Secklow Sounds Radio, and we'll play you some music along the way. If you want to take part in today's programme, you can email me at radio@secklowsounds.org. Let me know if you have anything to add to what is being discussed today, and I'll include it on the programme. Alternatively, click on Facebook or Twitter at secklowsounds.org and post any topics or business success stories that you would like included on a future Business Lunch programme. So joining me on the Business Lunch programme today is Nigel Walton, who's a director and I presume owner, Nigel, of Abbot Fire Group.
Yes, indeed, Jim. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the listeners. We ought not to be remiss and mention that my wife Chrissy owns the other half of the business.
You've got to get that right, haven't you? Nigel, welcome to the Business Lunch programme. Thank you very much for coming in. We'll have a chat about exactly what it is that Abbot Fire Group does in a couple of minutes. But can you give us a short synopsis of Nigel Walton's career background?
Yes, of course. When I left school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do and went to work in the retail jewellery trade, which was very different to what I do now in the fire protection world. Did that for quite a number of years, worked my way steadily up through hard work and promotion, and ended up with a senior position in one of the branches, one of the company's number one branches in Oxford Street, which was eventually sold, and redundancy was the outcome of that. At which time I reviewed the whole strategy and where I was, what I was going to be doing in the future, and decided to go more into direct sales and something a little bit more, a little different, a little change from where I was.
Yeah, certainly is.
And that's when I took my first foray into the fire protection market, and I commenced my job working for a large national, plodding around the streets, knocking on people's doors, asking if we could be of assistance. So that went well.
Yep.
Stayed there for a couple of years, and then I moved on to Mr. Chubb's empire.
Ah, yes, yeah.
So most people know of those.
My brother works for them.
So you better not tell him I'm in here today, AJ.
Yeah. So, actually, I think he's listening.
So Chubb Fire were a great grounding. I worked for them for a number of years, regularly promoted through the ranks, and again ended up with a senior position, was there for a number of years. Learnt an enormous lot. They were a great ground for teaching and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Was made redundant again through a restructuring, and I then went off from retail sales into the manufacturing side of portable fire extinguishers. Worked for a family company down in Folkestone in Kent that had cumulative losses and write-offs of £250,000. Mm-hmm. I was working in sales, but was really, to a large degree, the managing director's right-hand man. And we turned the business around. It took us 10 years, and we made it into a profitable organisation, a company that was sought after, and eventually it was acquired by guess who? Mr. Chubb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I then was transferred back into the Chubb empire as a key personnel. Knew that I would be there for not terribly long before I was likely to be shown the door. Lasted 6 months longer than I thought I would, and then the redundancy package came, and that was back 10 years ago now.
Yep.
And at that point in time, with a wife, 2 young children, then aged 5 and 7, I thought to myself, now, redundancies happened to me a few times. What does the future hold? Do I want to continue working for other people and have that unsure feeling that we don't know what the future holds? Or do we take a chance? Do we have a gamble? have we got the resource, the guile, the wherewithal to stand up there and be counted and see if we can make a go of it ourselves?
Sure. And you did.
And we did.
And
yeah.
that's the point that you made the move for adopting Abbot Fire Group.
Yes, we started Abbot Fire, formed it in the March, but we actually started trading on the 1st of June. And that was a time that was a little bit interesting for me, shall we say, Jim. Mm-hmm. Things never go smoothly, do they?
Yeah, life does throw some things at us, yeah. Sounds as if it did for you.
It did for me. We decided from day one when we were starting the business that we wanted to trade purely on best practice advice. We wanted to be giving people professional advice, the right advice. We wanted to be giving good old-fashioned customer service,
sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Things like you used to have some years ago, and that can still be found in pockets these days around the country.
Yes, very much. Thankfully.
Thankfully, indeed. So we decided that we would do that. Started on the 1st of June. I wanted to achieve ISO 9001 within 6 months, which is the quickest you could do that.
And for our listeners, what is ISO 9001?
ISO 9001 is an independent third-party approval where they come to the business, they check through all of your records, your procedures, your paper trails, your policies, and they check to make sure that you are doing exactly what you promised the client and that you're doing it well and you're doing it competently,
right.
Which is the most important thing.
Great, thanks for that.
Also wanted to achieve BAFE recognition for my business, which stands for British Approvals for Fire Equipment. And that's another organisation which perhaps we'll come on to talk about later on, Jim.
Yeah, we will.
So we'll expand on that a little later.
Sure.
And so we wanted those things in place within 6 months. And we started on the 1st of June, as I said. 2 weeks later, my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So that obviously put a bit of a hiccup in the starting of the business. But
of course.
I think that one thing that is important for the listeners to know is that, you know, you can overcome these things. You can, if you're determined to succeed, keep striding forward and you can succeed.
Yep.
So my father died on the 8th of July, so just a few weeks later.
Sorry, what year was this again?
10 years ago,
10 years, yeah.
So 2002.
Yeah.
And then in the autumn, because we'd started the business from home, I was putting up some exterior lighting outside so we could see to get from the driveway to the stores, and I slipped off the ladder and broke my ribs. So I was then confined to bed for a few weeks.
And you must have been thinking, what's going on?
How on earth are we going to overcome all these obstacles?
Yeah.
Well, they say behind every man is a good woman.
Yep.
And that has to be said for Chrissy. She's stood by me through thick and thin, and she was there with the paperwork. She was there with the engineer. And I have to say that it took us 6 months and 2 days, and at that point in time we did succeed and achieve our ISO and our BAFE approval, which we've maintained to this day.
Sure. Incredible story.
Tough story, real life story.
Sure.
You know, we hear and see lots of media spin about good and bad things in the press, don't we?
Yeah.
But that's a real life story.
Yeah, it is indeed. So, Abbot Fire Group has been around for 10 years. Tell me, what is it that you do? What does Abbot Fire Group do?
We are experts in fire safety. Okay, so anything and everything to do with fire protection. And from servicing and supplying portable extinguishers to staff training, to fitting of fire alarms, radio fire alarms, so there's no damage to decor.
Yep.
So we don't have to run unsightly cables around people's premises.
Sure.
We also have a very specialist section of the business which installs and services and repairs kitchen fire suppression systems in commercial kitchens.
Ah, yes, yep.
So if you go to a fast food restaurant, if you go to a large hotel, a large restaurant, there's a very good chance that we will have installed or maintained some of those systems within there.
Okay.
We do that both as Abbot Fire, and we also do it as specialist subcontractors for a number of other fire protection companies around.
Okay.
We do that because the area that we work in is particularly specialised. There's only around 30 distributors in the UK and Ireland.
Okay.
And there's a very limited market. If I tell you there's 2,000 fire protection companies or thereabouts in the UK, if you think that there's only 30 odd that have got this particular product that they can bring to market, which is the Ansel R102 product, then you can see that there's limited access to it.
Absolutely.
So we have a great team there. They install and service these things at all sorts of hours of the day and the night when the kitchens aren't working.
Yeah.
Because we can't be in there servicing when...
Can't shut them down.
No, when somebody's cooking your favourite burger, for example.
Yes.
So, so we do that sort of thing. We test dry risers. Anything and everything to do with fire protection, we do it.
And what is the bulk of your work, would you say?
It's about 50% is the specialist kitchen fire suppression area.
Right.
And then after that is portable fire extinguishers.
Yep.
They're the second largest sector. And then we follow on with things like fire training, fire alarms, dry risers, as I said, hose reel testing, and fire training. We've got a fantastic new training room at our new premises, which is located on the outskirts of Buckingham.
Yep.
And we can have people over to us for fire training now, instead of us going to the client.
Yeah.
And we can either do it with or without live fires.
Okay.
Nothing like feeling that heat on your face, Jim.
Not quite sure about that. It's a pretty obvious answer to this question, I'm sure, but give us an idea of the type of customers that you have on board.
We have customers from the smallest butcher baker, candlestick maker, right up to the largest corporates that you can imagine in the land.
Yeah.
We really do work across a wide spectrum. We have a smattering of domestic residences that we look after.
Right.
But essentially, it's a sad fact that people don't like to spend money on fire safety, particularly consumers. Yeah. And it's a shame, because I follow lots of the fire brigades on Twitter. And, you can follow us at Abbot Fire Group on Twitter as well.
Yep.
And, the thing that they shout about the most that comes forward is that smoke detectors save lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fire detection does save lives.
Yeah.
And all fires start small.
Yeah.
I often, when I have new employees become part of my team at Abbot Fire, I like to sit them down and show them a video of the Bradford football disaster, which is going back some years now, because it started with a cigarette end.
That's right.
Discarded into some rubbish.
Yeah.
And if you sit and look at that, and the video runs for about 10 minutes, at the end of it, there's often silence.
Yeah, because you can't believe what you've just witnessed.
No.
And how it happened. Yeah.
The key thing is that all fires do start small.
Yeah.
And if you have the right equipment in place and you have suitable training, you can snuff that fire out quickly before it comes a danger.
And is it true to say that a company like yours, like Abbot Fire Group, is responsible for us not seeing and hearing so many fire engines around these days?
Yes, that is
fire
true.
Fire protection. Really.
Absolutely, yeah. Fire protection takes an important part of that. I'm chairman of a trade association which is called IFEDA, the Independent Fire Engineering and Distributors Association. And a few years ago, in association with another trade association, or partnership with another trade association, we actually carried out a survey of our member fire companies, that when they were called to go and refill fire extinguishers for whatever reason, was to ask what the extinguishers had been discharged on. And if they'd been discharged on a fire of some sort, were the fire brigade in fact called, or the fire authority informed? And the fact that came back, which was quite startling, is that 80% of fires the fire brigade were never called to.
Right.
Because if people had the right type of fire protection in place and knew how to use it,
they fixed it themselves.
They fixed it themselves, and they didn't need the fire authorities out to save them.
Excellent.
And I think that's as good a reason as any for making sure you've got the right equipment in the right place.
Yeah. So, Nigel, in your mind, what is it that makes Abbot Fire Group as successful as it is?
behind every business, you need to have a great team. You need your staff, and they need to be absolutely top class and on the money as well as you are.
Sure.
Without them, the business is nothing. You're only as good as your worst person within your organisation. That is key. I think the other thing that makes us different is the quality of service. And those that are probably listening back in the office now will be saying, he's not going to say that again, is he? And it's quite simple. I have this ethos that if we agree to come and see you on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we're there at Tuesday at 10 o'clock. That doesn't mean Wednesday, and it equally doesn't mean Monday, because coming early can be as bad as being there late.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if for any reason we can't be there, and there has to be a very good reason, we'll communicate with you. We'll pick up the phone. We'll send you an email, and we'll tell you about it. So not making false promises. That's one of the important things.
Yeah.
The other thing is quality of service and quality of product. Fortunately, because I've been involved in the manufacture of portable extinguishers, as to regards that and some of the other things that I do, I only choose to supply premium products to my clients. So they get something which is a quality product at a fair and reasonable price. We're neither expensive nor inexpensive. We're in the middle. But the products will last a long time if looked after properly, which is what we'd like our clients to ask us to do.
Sure.
And so therefore, you get good value for money.
Yeah. You can't say fairer than that.
No. By doing that, we find that we have an extremely high customer retention rate. Okay, so...
Very much key, isn't it?
Very key, because, whilst you're putting those customers in the top of the pot, you don't want them falling out the bottom.
Yeah.
And we have very, very few. We do have a figure that I know that our friends at the MK Business Citizen like to recount, which is we've never lost a customer through dissatisfaction during the lifetime of the business, which is 10 years, which I think is an extraordinary fact.
It is something to be very proud of.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, as long as and as good as I have a fantastic team around me that work with the same ethos as I do, I, as managing director, always make myself available to any customer who should wish to phone up. So I'm approachable. I'm here to talk to. If they have something that they'd like to discuss, even if it's just for advice and guidance, then they can pick up the phone and speak to me.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Nigel. And you said that, I think quite rightly, that your employees are part of the reason that you have the success that you have. If I were to ask any of them, what's it like to work at Abbot Fire Group, what do you think they would say?
The boss is a stickler for detail, but it's fun.
Yeah?
Yeah, probably. I can only second guess what they'd say.
Yeah. In which case, tell us what your experience, what it's like of working at Abbot Fire Group, albeit it's going to be biased, isn't it?
What my experience of working there is...
Yeah, what's the culture like there? What do you think the culture is like?
Everybody gets on.
Yeah.
We are a cohesive team. We all work well together. If somebody for some reason is not there, somebody else steps in and covers for them. They look after that element. And, we try to have a fun and friendly relationship. We've just moved to new premises, which are much larger. And, we like to do those things that people don't always do. So on a Friday, we'll go buy some crunchy bars, okay? Or we'll go buy some cakes.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I always try to do is that at the end of the week, I like to thank the staff, the team, for their efforts that week, okay? Now, that has a double-edged effect, I guess, because, if I don't thank you, and I've thanked you for the last 6 weeks, you might go home for the weekend thinking, what did I do wrong this week? Yeah, you didn't
thank me this week. I've done something wrong.
So you've got to make sure that you're balanced in what you do there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it's interesting, though. Those little things do mean a lot. If you think about, a marriage, for example, it's the little things that matter, or that's what my wife tells me. But, that's bound to be the case. It must be the case at work.
I think it's very much the case. People tend to jump up and down and shout if something goes wrong, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
But what we don't tend to do is pat people on the back and say, well done.
Yeah, yeah.
And, that is what I like to do.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I've got the right people that can get a pat on the back.
Yeah.
Sure, every once in a while, someone needs a kick somewhere else.
Yeah, sure.
But that's the nature of life. That's the nature of business.
Yep.
And we need to value people. And if you value people and you work together and you invest in them and you train them and they do well for you, they stay.
Yeah.
And so we have a very, very low...
And they stay because they want to.
Yeah, we have a very low turnover of staff.
Yeah, excellent.
And in fact, we have an orderly queue at the door of people that want to come and work for us.
Yeah, that's a great position to be in.
So we don't use recruitment agencies for that reason. We have a list of people. As and when a position becomes available, we give them a call and get them in.
Yeah, excellent. That all sounds great. We're fifth, coming up to the 6th year of a recession. How has Abbot Fire Group dealt with that situation?
We've grown.
Great, isn't it?
Year on year.
Interesting.
Year on year, we've gone through the recession, usually 20 to 30%.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I remember back the early stages of the recession, we'd been busy. Year on year, the business had grown. And some of the technicians were in the office, and one of them turned around and he said to me, boss, he said, the recession's coming. How's that going to affect Abbot Fire? And I said, it's not. It won't affect Abbot Fire. And he said, well, how can you be so sure? I said, well, the fact of the matter is I can't absolutely be sure, but what I can do is I can invest in the future. And so what we're going to do is I'm either going to be foolhardy or very brave, but we're going to invest in our marketing. We're going to make sure that we are visible to potential clients and existing ones to remind them that we're here.
Yeah.
That we will actually be taking on somebody to promote the business, which we did.
Yep.
And at that point in time, I decided that I needed to improve my marketing. And that's when I went off and interviewed a number of people and was searching for somebody to work with on the marketing side of the business.
Yep. So from there on in, you were quite comfortable?
Yes, I was fairly comfortable. I worked with a couple of people in particular. I worked very closely with Kay Pendle-Smith at PS Marketing. She's now going to be sitting there thinking, oh dear, why did he mention me? And she probably knows why. I also worked very closely with John at Studio MK, who does my photography.
Yep.
And I conduct an unusual test when I'm looking for new suppliers.
Yep.
Jim, I usually find them about 5 to 5 on a Friday afternoon. And that then gives me an opportunity to establish how committed they are to their business and what sort of partnership we're likely to have. And what we have is we have a true partnership, and particularly with Kay at PS, she has an Abbot Fire email address. She is in constant communication with me and my team. Yep. And she is almost like having an additional employee within the business.
Absolutely.
She knows exactly what we want. She knows exactly what I need to do. And just so that she knows if she's listening, that's why I got you to take the picture of me sitting here with the headphones on earlier.
One reason that we got you in is because that we noticed, I think it was actually back in April or May, that there was an article in MK Business Citizen that mentioned that you received the Business of the Year award in 2011 at the Milton Keynes and North Bucks Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards, but it also talked about you being a non-executive director at BAFE that you mentioned earlier on. So can you talk us through how you were nominated in relation to the awards, and then we can talk about your involvement in a couple of other organisations.
Okay, Jim. Well, as regards the Excellence Awards at Milton Keynes Chamber of Commerce, excuse me, we decided that we would enter that first in 2009. We had a lot of good stories to tell.
Yep.
And we had some good performances, good customer care, good figures. And we decided that we would enter and see how we got on. We've actually won the award twice, so we're a multi-award winning
Excellent.
business. We won in 2009 and 2011. We were runners-up in 2010. Not that we're bitter, but I was hoping for 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And I have to say that when we first won in 2009, that was the highlight of my business career so far.
Yeah.
It meant an enormous amount to me. And again in 11, 10 I considered failure because we hadn't won. We were runners up and highly commended. Not a bad position.
No, absolutely.
You should be happy with that.
Yeah, of course you should.
I always strive for excellence.
Sure. Yeah.
In the excellence
I'm getting
awards.
the picture. I'm getting the message.
So coming second isn't good enough, unfortunately, for me. So we won twice, and the important thing about that was an independent board of judges. Okay, now I can sit here on Secklow Sounds and I can tell you what a wonderful business Abbot Fire is, how we care about our clients, how we look after people. And people will think that's spin, PR and all of those kinds of things. But, you know, when it comes to an awards ceremony, they were looking at hundreds of businesses.
Yep.
Okay, and out of those hundreds of businesses, Abbot Fire Group was the winner in the category Business of the Year, less than £1 million turnover, and we did that, as I say, twice. So that for me is a recognition of all of the hard work of my team back at base, who are there toiling away, doing what we need to do and what we do well when I'm out here enjoying myself on the radio with you, Jay.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
So that is important. And that to have that recognition just absolutely blew me away.
Sure.
Money doesn't motivate me. A lot of people are motivated by money. Doesn't motivate me in the slightest. As long as I've got enough to eat, pay the mortgage and look after the children, you know, and at 17 and 15, let me tell you, the girls' dresses bill is not insignificant. Then I'm happy, okay? But to be recognised for excellence in what I do, the achievement, that is what switches me on.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
So that is good. Then move on, as you say, to becoming non-executive director at BAFE, which is British Approvals for Fire Equipment. BAFE is a body which is based over at the Fire Service College at Morton in the Marsh, which is a very good location for them, as I'm sure you can imagine. And they are responsible for improving the quality and excellence of service in the fire protection industry in general.
Right.
So any companies out there that provide fire protection services, once they've achieved their independent third-party certification, which is an ISO 9001 approval, by a UCAS-approved body, then they can apply to BAFE to be recognised in a number of schemes that they operate. We're recognised in the one for portable fire extinguishers, for the servicing and the installation of portable fire extinguishers. And there are other schemes that they run, lots of them, including fire alarms. And most recently, I went to Westminster with them at the end of May for the launch of their scheme on fire risk assessors. So fire legislation has changed a lot in recent years. The fire brigade don't come knocking on your door and tell you what to do anymore. They expect the responsible person who's in charge of the premises to carry out a fire risk assessment, okay, and to take the necessary steps to keep them and their staff or the public safe.
Sure.
So there's all sorts of fire risk assessors. In everything in life, there's good and bad.
Sure.
This is another certification scheme that's recently been launched for businesses to have themselves approved. So my advice to those listening out there is that if they want some product or service related to fire protection, that they do a couple of things. Firstly, they should choose a company that is BAFE approved and make sure that their level of denotion covers the area that they're wanting to buy or get that service for.
Okay.
And the other thing is to ensure that they belong to a relevant trade association. There's a handful of trade associations for the fire protection industry here. I'm slightly leaning towards one because in October I was appointed chairman of one, and that is IFEDA, the Independent Fire Engineering and Distributors Association.
Yep.
They look after small and medium-sized businesses. There are some larger ones in there as well, because there's always a good mix to have. And they provide support and services to those companies, technical updates, bulletins, training courses. So, we can't send a fire extinguisher engineer to anybody's premises and have them go and service something without them being competent to do so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as we said earlier on, 80% of fires are put out by working portable extinguishers.
Yeah.
They've got to be in tip-top condition, ready for action. They sit there for years, never working, never needing to be used.
Yeah.
They've got to work when they're called upon. And it's important to have a competent person service and install those.
Yep.
So I would suggest that somebody looks for the BAFE, looks for a membership of a trade association. IFEDA, is a good one, as I say, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then they should be reasonably assured that they're going to get good quality products and good quality service. So
being part of those organisations is pretty good for you and your company as well, I'd have thought.
Well, one thing it does do for Abbot Fire, and there's something else that I do which I haven't mentioned, which is I also sit on one of the committees at British Standards.
Yeah.
So I assist in a small way in the writing and the preparation of the British Standards for servicing and selection of portable fire extinguishers.
Okay, yep.
As I sit here, 2 members of my association, Colin Payne, Robert Catanzaro, are sat in Wales in a committee meeting going through 170 odd comments that the public have made on the latest British Standard.
Okay.
Now, I get to see those comments, obviously. I get to see the standard. So we know what's likely to be coming at Abbot Fire before our competition does.
Yes. Yeah.
So there are some very good, useful edges that we have over competitors, in as much as we may not know for sure what's going to happen, but we've got a very good idea as to the way things are moving in the market and forwards. Yeah. So we do things like spot opportunities to save our clients money in the long term. Mm. So there's been a trend over recent years to supply a particular type of extinguisher, which is foam spray extinguishers. And they're very good because if they pass the electrical conductivity test, if there was a fire here, Jim, and we inadvertently sprayed it onto your sound deck or your PCs, providing we didn't stand in the pool of liquid that formed, we'd actually be unlikely to be electrocuted.
Okay.
And they were introduced with a foam extinguisher. Now, the thing is, there is going to be, moving forward, some issues with disposal of foam concentrate from within extinguishers. So a few years ago, we saw that was coming, and it's still not here yet, but it's on its way.
Sure.
You can't discharge that sort of stuff into foul sewers or onto the land. You've got to comply with the wastewater regulations.
Yeah.
So it's here to a degree. And so we started to advise people to use waters. Some people develop water extinguishers with a spray, so they got the same protection from inadvertent use on live electrical equipment.
Sure.
Those are out there now. But we have clients who, for the last 4 or 5 years, have switched from foam to water, and so they don't have so much in the way of disposal costs.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are the sorts of benefits that are, I guess, side to Abbot Fire and Abbot Fire's customers, that by devoting my time and energies to assisting the fire trade in general, and let's not lose sight of the fact that we are here to provide life safety.
Exactly.
So every life that I inadvertently, or not inadvertently, but save, very definitely, but aren't aware of, is a very good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. You're a busy man.
They say that if you want something done, you should ask a busy man.
Yeah.
But I then go back to my statement earlier on about behind every man is a good woman.
Yeah.
And I have a fantastic wife who's as readily involved in the business as I am.
Sure.
She looks after HR and finance. And I have a fantastic team. Yeah. So we have specialists in their fields, and they look after those areas of the business. And by doing that allows me to be more strategic within the business, to take an overview, to decide what we're doing in the future and where we're going. and also to have time to go to BSI, to go to BAFE, to go to IFEDA,
Yep.
and do those things that make a difference to people in the country in general,
Yep.
and in specifically to the fire industry.
Great. Nigel, we are going to come back in a couple of minutes after our record because we're going to talk about, to find out if you've got any top tips for anybody that's listening about setting up a business, or somebody who has quite recently set up, and maybe some tips about how to run a business. And then we're going to ask you what your future plans are for Abbot Fire Group.
Okay.
Is that okay? Thank you. Nigel, have you got any tips for anybody who's listening that's either thinking of setting up a business or who has just started a business? Anything key that they should, from your experience, that you should be thinking of?
Plan. Number one, plan. Plan for every eventuality, every scenario that you can possibly think of. Also, be aware of what you're letting yourself in for. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. You know, when we work for people, we do our day's work, we finish the job and we go home. And then we think about watching the TV, going to the pub, going out for dinner with our friends, doing other things. When it's your own business and your business is growing, or you've recently started it, it takes your fullest energies. And you find that you're thinking about it all the time. I couldn't tell you how many times I wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And something has been ticking over in my mind. I've been trying to resolve an issue or a problem, something that I'm wanting to move forward with. And at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you'll wake up with the answer.
Yeah.
That happens quite regularly. It's surprising. And I go into work and the team go, "You look a bit tired today. Get 4 o'clock this morning again. Sorry, you know."
Yeah.
So,
Is that something that doesn't bother you too much because it is your own business?
I wouldn't be wanting to do it if I was doing it for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the key thing.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to be a particular type of individual. You must be 100% committed. If you're going to start your own business, do your plans, make sure you know where you're going, and have a road, have a journey, and mark upon that journey where you're going to, and measure on a regular basis where you are on that journey. I do that myself. Now I'm going to be doing it again for the next, umpteen years into the future, because that is the only measure you have.
Yeah.
We are in a very fortunate position at Abbot Fire. We don't owe the bank any money. My wife is the other director, so there's very few people there to keep me in line. So I have somebody externally come into my business once a month and challenge me to make sure that I'm performing, because otherwise you can put your feet up and take it easy. Yeah. So I would say, if you're starting a business, bounce your ideas off of people. First of all, of course, make sure you have a saleable product and service. Look at your competitors. See how you can differentiate between yourself and your competitors, which is what we did at Abbot Fire. One of the first things that I did was I said that I will not pay commission to any of my engineers or technicians, okay, because I wanted them to give impartial advice to people and give them best practice advice. I didn't want them to worry about putting food on the table at the end of the week.
Yeah.
So you've got to find that differentiation. And then just make sure you work hard at it.
Yeah.
And if you succeed, and I hope you do, it's a tremendous feeling to be driving a successful business, to be achieving and to be recognised, as we said regarding the awards, from outside.
Sure.
But you've got to have those checks in place, and you must come back and revisit to make sure that things are as they should be.
Yeah.
Because if you, I think the saying is, if you don't plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you must have those plans in place. And then when you get to a certain size, the whole structure of the business changes.
Yeah.
And that happened for me 2 years ago. When you start your business, you become a jack of all trades. you're usually a master in one,
Yeah.
but you're certainly not good at all of the other aspects that you need within running a business. So you'll muddle your way through, you'll cope with those. But when you get to a certain stage in your business development, you've got to sit down, you've got to think where you're going, what you need to do, and then you have to restructure.
Yeah.
And that's a process that I've gone through with my wife over the last 2 years, where we've had to alter the team, alter the personnel, and that is what we have done. So I think that advice holds true to anybody that's running their business.
Yeah.
So that you get to a stage where you don't have Nigel and his mates running around. You know, we now have specific people with specific jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. I'm sure that's very useful. It certainly sounded it to me. And what does Abbot Fire Group have in mind now? Have you got any current initiatives, and what are your plans for the future?
Well, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we are currently looking for acquisitions. We moved in May into a larger premises. It's in a beautiful rural setting. Again, that's coming back to your planning, Jim.
Yeah.
I had planned for the future. So we have installed new phone systems that can cope. We've got much bigger offices. We have spare desks. So we have the ability, if we're successful in finding another fire protection company that would like to merge with us, okay, to incorporate them into the business.
Yeah.
And to look after their baby. Because after all, it is your baby when you start your business and grow it.
Certainly is.
Okay, we have the storage facilities. So we are actively looking for somebody to come and work with us on that project. So, you know, times are hard out there. It's not easy trading times. And I'm sure there are people out there that are thinking to themselves, you know, this is a bit tough for me doing this on my own, or they've perhaps got just 1 or 2 engineers, maybe 3 or 4, and they're struggling a little bit. We're there to help them with that.
Great.
And to maintain, you know, the levels of and the ethos of their own businesses.
Sure, yeah.
So we're doing that. We've also worked recently with another fire protection equipment manufacturer in the Midlands, and we've jointly developed a new product, which is a pneumatically actuated fire suppression system.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a tongue twister.
It is a bit.
Any time of the day. So we call it PAFs for short.
Yeah.
What we realised is when we were installing our commercial Ansell R102 kitchen suppression systems into takeaways and larger restaurants and hotels, that there's an area which is between domestic and the large commercial areas where the kitchens are unprotected to a large degree.
Yeah.
And so as there's a huge percentage of fires are started in the kitchen, okay, both at home and in places like student accommodation, halls of residence and the like.
Yeah.
We do work with a number of those types of establishments. So we've worked with this particular manufacturer to produce a system which is between those brackets. So
Sure.
it's smaller in size than our large commercial system,
Yep.
and a lower cost item, but it does provide a very good degree of fire protection,
Yeah.
both attended and unattended.
Yeah.
So how this system works is you have a pressurised vessel with the fire suppressant liquid in it, okay, adjacent to the fire risk, which is a cooker.
Yep.
And then what will happen is you either set the system off manually, or there's a thermo tube, which is a plastic tube which you put around or above the cooker.
Yeah.
And if the fire takes place, the thermo tube will rupture, and that will cause the extinguishant to be released.
Yeah.
And it's released in one of 2 ways. Either actually out through the thermoplastic tube, so that delivers the media to put the fire out at the point of the fire.
Sure.
Or we hard plumb in some nozzles, and it will actually dispense that suppressant liquid via the nozzles itself.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a couple of ways of doing
Sure.
that.
Yep.
You can either set it off manually, or it'll work all on its own.
Okay. Great.
So we think that's something that would be very useful for places where kitchens are not perhaps like yours and mine at home, Jim, where we're there.
Yeah.
We cook our dinner and then we walk away. It's attended all the time.
Yeah.
But perhaps a smaller type kitchen, but has high use.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's a halls of residence where there are 10 or 20 students using one common kitchen,
Yep.
you know, it can happen that they've come back after one or two beverages
Yeah,
and
indeed.
put something on to cook and then doze off. I think we've all done it in
Indeed,
our lives.
Yeah.
You need that level of fire protection there
Yeah.
to work. So that's a new initiative
Okay.
that we've come up with.
And very briefly, because our next guest is knocking on the door, what's the future for Abbot Fire Group?
We have got the new premises. We're looking to grow. We are growing, and we're going to be delivering those quality products and services on time, on budget, out into the wider community, Milton Keynes and nationwide.
Nigel, thank you very much. Very interesting. You've got a very successful company, a great bunch of people working for you, and we wish you the very best of luck for the future. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Jim, for asking us.
Not at all. We're going to have some discussion forums in the future where we're going to invite 2 or 3, probably 3 business owners in at one time, and we'll talk about 2 or 3 subjects live online, and we'd like to get you back in to do that, and also to get you back at some time in the future and find out how you're progressing.
I look forward to it. Thank you for the invite.
Not at all. I've been talking to Nigel Walton, who is the director at Abbot Fire Group. Thank you very much, Nigel.